So welcome to this live. I'm going to be sharing with you within the next 30 minutes the best questions that I like to ask myself that can really help you to reflect on the year that has just been. And you might ask, why do we do this? So the way I used to live my life, I used to live it kind of just following what everybody else used to tell me to do. I never took any time out to just think about what I was doing, how I was feeling, was it going the way I wanted it to go? And it was almost like an existence. But when we actually take time out and reflect on the way that we're living, the things that are going well, the things that aren't going quite so well, then we can help to create a life by our own design. Now, of course, none of us have this immense superpower to design the life and make it flow exactly as we want it to. As much as we all would like it to, life happens, things happen. We can't control anything outside of ourselves. However, we have immense power of controlling the way that we feel about things and how we show up into our life every day, so that we can live a life that is aligned with us. Now, that might all sound like a bit of mumbo jumbo, but stick with me here. So what I'd really encourage you to do, if it's something that you don't do already, is to use journaling as a way to document how you're feeling, what you want to achieve, things that are working or not working. You don't have to do it every day if it's not something that really resonates with you. But it's something that is really beneficial, and I've been doing it for many years now and find it so helpful. So what I'm going to go through with you in this session, I would really encourage you to make note of what I'm saying and then reflect deeper. Okay, so this is something that you could do over an hour somewhere where you can just take a bit of time out for yourself in your journal in peace and quiet. You may want to reflect on the questions for a couple of days. It's working with what works for you, if that makes sense. Okay, there's no right and wrong. We all process things in different ways. You might find, as I ask a question right now, that you're going to get an immediate answer that comes up to you, and that's fine too. So, but I'd really encourage you just to take some time to reflect on the questions as we go. So, the questions that I am working with you is kind of, as I say, come from the questions I ask myself, and I know that really help me to get really laser focused on how my year has gone, how I want my next year to go, how I want my life to be. And I'm very honest with myself. And it's not about self-criticism necessarily here. This isn't about bashing yourself over the head. We're all very good at doing that. This is about being constructive and being honest with yourself. What can I do better? What went really well? And praising yourself for the things that have gone really well, because we're quite good at ignoring those and focusing on the things that don't go quite so well. And this is also a combination of questions that I used to do myself. It's a really good book. I can't remember the name of the author, but it's called The Best Year Yet. And it's 12 questions that she writes in this book that can really help you review your year. And it's something that I was, and still do actually, I say was in the past tense, but I was doing every year. But I tend to do mine kind of in the middle of the year as opposed to the new year. So this is kind of a variation of a theme. And there's lots of questions and guides and things out there to help you. But I find that these questions that I'm going to go through with you today are really helpful. Okay, so I've explained a lot about the questions. I've explained about how you can reflect on these through your journaling and taking time out. And we've also talked a little bit about why we're going to do this. So let's dive in. Okay, so the first question I want to ask you is to think about what didn't go so well for you in 2019. Perhaps something that frustrated you. What were the challenges that you faced? And again, it's not about necessarily beating yourself up over the head and saying, oh, I didn't go to the gym 20 times a week like I promised myself. But be more constructive about that. So, like, why didn't you go to the gym 20 times a week? Were you really pushed for time at work? Were you doing too much for somebody else and not enough for you? Try and go a little bit deeper into those answers so that you can understand why that didn't happen. So there may be several things that you reflect over. So what were my biggest frustrations? What didn't go so well in 2019? And then when you reflect back on the things that didn't go so well, the next question would be, how would I handle that differently this time round with hindsight? What did I... So let's go back to this, my example of the gym. You didn't go to the gym 20 times in a week. Maybe it's because you were too busy at work. So in hindsight, if that is something that's really important to you to do 20 times a week at the gym, what could you do differently in order to make that happen? So just reflect about that. Now, you may have several, as I say, several things that didn't go so well. So you may have several answers. Okay, so the next one is, who was I in 2019? Now, the part of this question is there's going to be several questions, as there always tends to be with these questions. So what masks did I wear, or what hats did I wear? Who was I in 2019? Was I authentic to myself? So you might reflect back on some relationships with people that you may act differently. If you're a mother, or you're a manager, you're a sister, you're a wife, whatever these things are, think about all the different characters that you play. Are they all authentic to you? So it's quite a deep question to ask yourself, and just thinking about all of these different characters that you play. And once you've reflected on these, I'd ask yourself, am I comfortable being who I'm being? How can I be more me in all of these situations? How can I bring more of the real me into my relationships, into my work, into these situations? And then we move on to the next one. The next question is, what was my biggest learnings of 2019? What did I learn? Now, I don't necessarily mean I learnt to speak Spanish, or I learnt to ride a donkey. I don't know where that came from. Must be the Christmas period. But what were my biggest lessons? And these tend to be personal lessons. So there might be something you've learnt about yourself. It may be something quite intense. It may be a way that you like to be treated by other people. It may be a way of living that you've learnt that is better for you. This is quite a loaded question, and of course we're all going to have totally different answers. But what were my biggest lessons of 2019? Okay, so that first section, these are quite deep, difficult questions to ask yourself. I know that they're sometimes can be a little bit tough, but I promise you, when you ask yourself these harder questions, you get some real gold. You can really get to understand yourself and the things that aren't necessarily working well for you, in order to then make things work better for you. So now we're going to look on to the things that have been really successful for you in this last year. So in 2019, what were my highlights, or what were my magic moments? Thinking about all of those things. And actually, although I'm saying the first section is really hard, I think generally as humans, particularly women, we find it even harder to give ourselves the praise and kind of say, actually, I did this really well. So just thinking about, what were my highlights, my magic moments? And then moving on from that, but in the same vein, what am I most proud of in 2019? What have I achieved? And again, moving from that, we then say, what am I most grateful for in 2019? So by asking yourself the first question of my highlights or my magic moments, you may be able to stem off some of those answers, the gratitude, the pride, all of these things could come off from those magic moments. But I would really encourage you to list as many as you can. Really dig deep, go right back through the beginning of the year. And then also think about the people who are my biggest influences this year? And that may be a positive or a negative, however you want to look at it. Who are the people that were big influences on my year? And a question I always like to ask is, how have I given back this year? So all of us benefit from giving to others. Sometimes the tables are a little bit imbalanced. We give too much, but are we giving to the people that we really want to give? And is it aligned with who we really are? So how have I given back this year? Okay, so those are a load of questions that lots of little questions may even come up for you to ask yourself as you go through them. But another good way, or a helpful way to review your year, is what I sometimes do is I write January down to December, and sometimes I have to go into my diary to remind myself of what I've done. But if you're struggling to find things, go back month by month, think about what you were doing, where you were, check your diary as well if that helps. And then you'll find all that information in there that can be really, really helpful to review your year.